It's my great pleasure to be able to bring the speaker here to introduce him. He's come a very long way. He's come from Cape Town. We're delighted to be able to introduce him here today. He did have a life-changing experience, and I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm not stealing his thunder. I'll just hand him straight over to Dr. Laurie.
Very much for joining us. There's a slide of me 10 years after the accident. I'll tell you about the accident, but that's an accident in 1997. It's me doing a 109-kilometer race. So I just want to get two ideas across because I only got 20 minutes. And it's what I learned in my own healing, trying to make my life back. And a researcher, as a sports scientist, but I've changed it to become a neurobiologist. So just the two ideas. It ties in nicely with Dan Siegel's work as well. Because those are the two things that were most important in my healing. So this is the shot now going before the accident, 2 months before the accident. He was in pretty good shape then. I was training for SA Champs and Triathlon, South African Triathlon Champs. And then this shot was 2 weeks before the accident on that same bicycle. I was taking part in my provincial championships, so I was in very good condition. And then this 2 weeks after that, I was knocked by a drunk container truck driver while I was cycle training. I'm just going to briefly describe what happened. When I was going about 30 k's an hour, the truck was going at over 100 k's an hour. Went to the back of me, I got whiplash, and I broke 2 of my vertebrae, C3 to C7. It also damaged the spinal cord, so it shut my breathing response down and paralyzed my whole body. Smashed with my right leg, pushed me into the handlebars, fractured 6 ribs, ripped the left diaphragm, and lost half my body blood impact. Went over the handlebars and fell on my head, bare head, with a helmet on. Got very severe brain trauma, brain damage. And then I fell on my back, and I fractured another 3 vertebrae on my back. So it's 5 vertebrae, 6 ribs, very severe brain damage. Went over the handlebars and surfed my back, lost all the skin off my back. I came to land about 33 meters from the point of impact. And I was in a coma. Ambulance took me to the hospital, and they immediately started infusing blood. Long story, I'm not going to talk about that part of it. Actually, the first shot of me was 2 months after the accident. I was in such a bad shape. When my mother was told after brain scanning and stuff, saying, well, your son is paralyzed from the neck down and he's severely brain damaged. That's what she sort of diagnosed. So that was, we started from the beginning of the ICU. I was 33 days in the ICU. Got complete memory loss from 2 days before the accident till 34 days after the accident. There's no memory whatsoever. So no recollection of being in hospital, in the ICU, completely no recollection. That's all those things. I mean, it's coming in my conscious brain. I was obviously out of the coma after 5 days. And it's so traumatic that it just went out of my brain immediately. Which, thank goodness, because I mean, if I remembered all that traumatic incidences, I would never go back on my bicycle. I would never get back out there again because all that stress and trauma, it's something in my body, but it's not in my conscious brain. That's what I want to focus on, the subconscious brain, because your subconscious brain has got innate healing properties. The only way you can allow that innate healing properties to come out is to shut your thinking down. So that's the first concept. And I think Elizabeth has touched on it now, which is not here anymore. But thinking by thinking, thinking by thinking. Overthinking, you put yourself in a bad space. Now your thinking brain is only about 5% of your brain activity. Subconsciously, you've got 95%, well, about 95%. Nobody can say an exact figure, but it's a much more power in the subconscious mind. And that's not always in our conscious thinking, not always aware of what's going on in the reptilian brain. So I want you to think of that, what is actually happening now while you're sitting there. It's controlling your heart rate, it's controlling your blood pressure, it's controlling weight management, energy balance, everything. It's all balanced to perfect down to the last T. But our thinking brain can overcome all that. It's got so much power in the neocortex, it can override all those wonderful processes taking place deeper down by trying to do something that's not consistent with our natural rhythms in our body. You can see from that slide all the muscle wasting. So the slide before, a lot of muscle. I mean, I was in deep condition there. All my muscle tone is gone. I've been lying for 2 months without moving. That slide, the only thing I could move was my left hand and my right hand. I couldn't move, or the fingers I couldn't move yet. But you can see I could hold the remote control and push the button. That's about all I could do after 2 months. And it took me 5 months to actually get into a wheelchair and start exercising, and then to take my first step. Okay, that's sort of what's, because I had the spinal damage, they put me in braces on my back and my neck, very uncomfortable. You can see that my arms are completely wasted away, got no turn in my hands, and I couldn't really lift him up. And that's when I got home after 3.5 months. My dad put him in a wheelchair there, you can see my legs completely skinny, my arms, I mean, it's like twigs, you know, it's completely wasted away. Sorry?
Can I ask you a question, Laurie?
Yeah.
You look at your face is so expressively happy there. Can you just comment on how you felt?
It is actually in all the shots. It is. I think it's unusual. I mean, I suppose I've got a happy disposition, but it's I was going through hell. I mean, my mind was completely. I think I was trying to just be positive thoughts. I was probably just coming home, but even in the hospital, I was in a wheelchair. I also got a big smile, so I didn't feel like that. I mean, inside I was, and that's all my research revolved around that. You know. How do you motivate and move your body? Because my research before, I was an athlete and I was doing sports science. My research was on the muscle, on the metabolism, and the feedback back to the brain. You know, so when you start getting tired, you got to push yourself through that. But now, after my accident, everything's completely other way around. I want to see how does the brain motivate and move the body, not the other way around. Not the feedback is not that important. What is important, we don't know what's going on in your body, but the most important thing, we talk about mood, also about the mood is very important. And how do you take that mood then and go out and do something, you know, actually getting the job done? That is the key. So the other thing I want to talk about is the stress response. You all mentioned that. And stress in itself is not a bad thing because it enables us to do a lot of things. Without the stress, you won't be here. You won't get out of bed in the morning. You'll just be like a vegetable. The stress gets you up, like the adrenaline release, the cortisol. We'll talk about that a bit more as well in my next few slides. That was probably the most difficult thing I ever done. There's one, we'll also talk about that. The second most difficult thing I've ever done in my life was walking over those parallel bars. I was physically totally unprepared. I mean, I was lying in bed for 5 minutes not moving. I had no muscle tone. I could stand on my one leg for about 3 minutes. I collapsed into a heap because I had no muscle tone. All my core muscles were gone. My stump muscle, obviously, not used at all. So it was no muscle tone in the stump muscle. Now you've got to control this prosthetic leg I've got there. There's no picture of me there, but when you put a leg on, you've got to control it with your stump muscle. There's nothing there, it's completely gone. So every time I took a step, I just move out, I wobble like jelly. But they told me, if you can walk with this practice leg, there's the 1st of August now, so by the end of August, if you can walk by the end of August, and that leg will give you a real leg, a real prosthetic leg. So I thought, great, I mean, give me any goal to work towards, I can do it. But this was completely different. I mean, it almost felt like somebody told me, like, you've got to learn how to fly. Because I didn't have the equipment, I didn't have the muscle power, I couldn't do it, but my mind I could do it. So the other important point there is that, you know, it's difficult enough for the weak body, but the thing that makes it more difficult, we talk about the stress response. So in my case, obviously the fear of falling, makes your body even weaker, even the muscle power I had was completely gone. Every time I thought of it, I'm going to fall, and it's like you just want to sit down. That cortisol adrenaline release just make you want to sit down. But anyway, I had to do it, so I thought back of my pre-accident days, and I'd done some rock climbing. So I'm coming back to the incident that was the most difficult period, or most difficult thing in my life I've ever done was not at that height. This height, this is Yosemite's. Somebody talked about Yosemite's only with you, Dan. It's half dome, or El Cap, I can't remember which one, but anyway, this goes up for 1,000 foot. I mean, it's a straight drop down. That's at 1,700 feet. And he's traversing, and you can see he's like almost lower. He's not stressed at all. If he's stressed, you're going to fall. I mean, this is no question. Okay, I was a similar kind of experience on Table Mountain, not quite as high, it's about 500 feet down. And the friend of mine, he just like messing around the mountain. I thought, okay, there's a nice route to climb. I climbed up this, and I mean, it was, yeah, we've got a picture, but it's the same incline. You know, I was climbing up a face like that. It's about a 200-meter drop. But I was on a ledge, and I thought I could just jump back down again. But I had to move to find hand grips. I moved away from the ledge, and then all of a sudden I ran out of handle. So it's almost like that picture just below. It was a rock face like that. And the next ledge was like about 3 meters up. There's just no way to get there. I thought, no, okay, so I'm just going to jump back down to the ledge. But when I looked down, the ledge wasn't there anymore. I had to climb away. It was just a straight drop, 200 meters down. And immediately, just when I saw that, I just burst into sweat. my hands started trembling, and my whole life flashed before me, and I said, no, this is the two most stupidest things to do, because if you're sweating, you're going to slip. If you tremble, you're going to fall. So you've got to overcome this somehow. And this in my mind was very quickly. I said, I can't climb back down again because I can't see the handles. The only way I can do is climb up. Even if there's no handles, that's my only chance. And when I made that in my brain, that's what I've got to do. To get a goal, I started climbing. To this day, I still don't know how I made it. But I climbed up almost like a spider. I mean, I wasn't thinking, I was just, and it felt awesome. I felt so relaxed inside and just climbed like Spider-Man. I had a friend staying on the top there, and he was like, he couldn't believe it. He said, how did you climb up there? He said, because there's no handles. It was just freaky. But that's the kind of thing, if your brain is completely in tune, integrated, all the areas working together, you can do those kind of things. And so that's what I tap into with walking now. So that's what I tap into. Like, just all you have to do, trust your body, don't think. Those are the two things I had to do. First, relax totally. Relaxed, I started laughing. I thought, I'm 30 years old, I can't walk, it's actually pathetic. And when I had the humour, I saw the humour in it. I'd take a step and I'd fall, but I'd laugh about it. So okay, there's something else required. I can't just be relaxed, I also got to do something else. And that was not thinking. Because every time all I thought about was falling. I was scared of falling, so I thought, okay, don't think of falling, because your brain is thinking falling and you're going to fall. And that was very simple. Okay, don't think fall, think walk. But I didn't think, I just shut my thoughts off completely, because I realized every time I thought something, I'd fall. Instantly thought. So to me, it's like thinking and action is almost mutually exclusive. When you're doing something, you can't think. Or when you think, you can't do something. It's like analysis paralysis. So stop thinking. That's the best thing I can say. And those two things I've taken into my research now is to not think. The action is important in the thinking. Obviously, before the time you've got to do your thinking, but when your action is there, you don't think. You've got this program into your body. And that's just what I really want to get to you now is this movement circles, because I looked in the literature, I tried to find how do you actually move. You know, when you do any behavior, any action, you need your muscle power, obviously, but how do you, we know from school biology is your cortex gets stimulated, and you can move your leg and your arm, whatever, but how do you stimulate this cortex? And that's part of your thinking brain. So I had to dig deep in the animal literature, and I found this brilliant example of the lamprey eel. It's a very easy model, but you also got to remember that all animals, all vertebrates, you know, with 4 legs, a tail, whatever, they're all got exactly the same physiology. It works to locomote, all exactly the same. Okay, so this is now this lamprey going for food. Very simple, very straightforward model. You can see the food and the water at the top there, essentially. It's a reflex action to this thing here in the hypothalamus, the posterior tuberculum, those are dopaminergic nuclei. Then you've got this wonderful nuclei in the midbrain locomotor region, which is amazing. I mean, they had all kinds of experiments on horses and fish and birds. They put a horse on a plinth, and they just stimulate that locomotor region. And the more they stimulate, the horse will start walking, then it will start trotting, then it will start galloping. Just from that one little area. With a bird will start walking, eventually will start flying, just by stimulating the one area. And humans have done it in an MRI machine. They've looked, imagine running, exactly those same areas light up. Coming to the nerves, how do you go then from those cells to your spinal cord and movement? The reticulospinal cells in the sort of medulla, that goes to the reticulospinal nervous system. Now that system is exactly the same system that regulates your emotions. And that's the key. The same circuits that make you move, locomote. And locomotion is things like walking, like running, like cycling, paddling, repetitive movements that you've taught yourself to do. You can't, I mean, you think yourself when you walk, you don't think about your walk. It's just done automatically. And those are the circuits you have to tap into. And then it goes to spinal pattern generators. So even if you cut off animals that are cats, they decapitate the cat, but they can still walk on a treadmill. It's a terrible experiment. I mean, that's disaster. I mean, I don't know how people do that, but they put a cat on a treadmill, they can still walk because because the treadmill is moving, it's pattern generators does that. So the point I'm trying to make is that movement, locomotion is done completely subconsciously, and it's very powerful. And those DA neurons in the midbrain, that's where the gold lies. I mean, do we have those DA neurons? Absolutely. That comes back to the reptilian brain, or sort of the deep animal brain. We've got the midbrain, the hypothalamus and the brainstem. We've got exactly the same dopamine neurons there. You see in the bottom there in the middle. We've got about 500,000 dopamine neurons. Most of them are inactive. If you activate all those neurons at the same time, You'll be like Superman on speed. You can do anything you want. That's the kind of power you get from looking at rock climbing. Dopamine, when you've got a specific goal, so clear in your mind, to achieve that goal, the dopamine just gives you a supercharge. And it's not just dopamine, you've also got lots of neurochemicals. Norepinephrine, also released from the reptilian brain, from the brainstem, into your thinking brain. Now that makes you panic. That's what you just want to stay away from. Serotonin, that makes you pleasant mood. So that's when you want the dopamine and serotonin release. But you don't want the things like norepinephrine and cortisol. Okay, so just to give you an example of what I mean, that lady, she's at childbearing age. Obviously thinks like, I've got to start a family, but she's got a job, she's got to pay a bond, a mortgage here, all the stress is maybe kids. So in her mind, she's thinking, okay, I've got a reproductive action. I'm not going to cover that, but there's basically three motivated behaviors in our brainstem. But the thinking brain says, I'm in defensive mode because obviously you're thinking of your next meeting or you're going to pay whatever bill. So that thinking brain goes to the reptilian brain. So your thinking brain overrides your reptilian brain. It actually instructs the reptilian brain what to do. So if you instruct the reptilian brain to be healthy and well, it will do that. If you say it's coming stress, it's going to help you to release cortisol. So I'll just show you what happens. So there's a signal from the hypothalamus, the pituitary, goes to your adrenal gland, and the pregnenolone, which is the intermediate, all your steroid molecules get made from that. And the pregnenolone then gets turned into cortisol instead of progesterone. So you can see between pregnenolone and cortisol, because you're in stress, you need cortisol. Cortisol releases your glucose and the fat into your blood. But what you want to do when you fall pregnant, so you actually need progesterone. But because your thinking brain is saying, I'm in stress, then you make cortisol instead of progesterone. And you can't fall pregnant because progestation. Without the progestation, you can't fall pregnant. Now you get fertility treatment saying, you can't fall pregnant because you need fertility treatment. You're overriding your reptilian brain, so it's just a big confusion. And you can see on the other side, testosterone and estrogen, exactly the same thing. Okay, men, you can also, your testes, you produce testosterone. There's a similar kind of effect. If you're stressed, you're going to produce cortisol instead of testosterone. So your reptilian brain does whatever you want it to do. And it's everything, I promise you, almost every non-communicable disease you can think of. Cardiac failure, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, it's all the same system. It's the thinking brain, it's just overriding the reptilian brain. Instead of just being completely quiet and letting the reptilian brain organize everything. It can regulate everything perfectly. It can regulate your weight within a couple of grams over years. Your energy levels can regulate it perfectly well. Your fertility, you name it, it can do it for you. This is known as progesterone steal. So instead of falling pregnant, you produce cortisol. Okay, I'm not going to cover this, so I'm probably running out of time already. This is very, very powerful about not wasting your heartbeat. I'm just going to mention this one. This you can see. Oops. Yeah, this is just with drugs, like showing if you beta blockers, if you decrease your heart rate, the mortality rate goes down. So it's just like a straightforward relationship. You almost waste your heartbeat, you're beating it too fast, you're hurrying up your demise, because you only got a certain amount, like 3 billion heartbeats. That's the previous research here. And they actually did it in rats. And this Levine estimated that if you lower the mean heart rate from 70 to 60 beats a minute, you increase your lifespan from 80 to 93 years. So they couldn't do this study in humans, but they did it in mice. So what they do, all the meals they give the mice digoxin, which slows the heart rate down. And they found some amazing results. Just 0.05 milligrams a day, but if you give the equivalent to a human being, you'll kill them straight out. It's just too powerful. So it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the good one, that's the one you want to stimulate. And all those mice, all 400 mice, all lived longer, 850 versus 700 days. But they couldn't use the results because all the mice also weighed less. So they ate the same amount of food, but they didn't pick up as much weight. So those are two things we're looking for, to extend your lifespan and to maintain your weight. And that's just by decreasing the heart rate. Very straightforward. Another brilliant study, we talked about the monastery. I know Danny said you went to monasteries, and I don't know if you know this research by Timia in 1988 actually followed nuns in the monastery. They're quiet, they meditate, they just no noise, no kids, just relax themselves all the time in the world to do those things. And they measured their blood pressure from when they went in, the control group. So the nuns were 38 years old, the controls were 35 years old. Now you can see on that X or the Y axis there, when they started the nuns with sort of the blank columns there, 120 over 80, and all the way through, till about in the 20th sort of year of the study, they maintained the blood pressure, it didn't go up. 120, 125 over 80, no change. Whereas the controls, this kept going up, blood pressure goes up. And that's just because of our busy lives. So if you actually take a time out and learn to de-stress and go back to the hub, you can maintain your blood pressure at normal levels or at low levels. And if you all know Ben Stiller probably, that's the term of lowest energy I'm also bringing to it now. That's when you've got a busy brain, you're thinking too much, then you're actually telling your reptilian brain, release cortisol, release adrenaline, I've got so much things to do, I've got deadlines. And it's just following what you tell. The reptilian brain is just doing what you're commanding. Your thinking brain is so powerful. If you can tell it, no, there's nothing going on, just relax, then it will do that. It will actually won't release the cortisol, it won't release the adrenaline, it will release the progesterone and the oxytocin, all those feel-good chemicals. And that's the other point I'm going to make. Zaza Gabor, or Eva Gabor, is I'm a workaholic. For long I'm traveling on nervous energy alone. And this is incredibly exhausting. I mean, that is actually wears your body out. It's like revving your car in the red from one road to the next, one traffic light to the next. You won't get anywhere because when the traffic lights are always going to, you have to stop anyway. It's like stop, go, stop, go. I don't know if we run out of time, but I just want to show you these videos now because I'm trying to apply this research now into when you're facing a stressful head-on. We talked a lot about trying to calm yourself down when you're in your own home, but when you're out there doing things, when you've got to actually perform, especially in the sports field, whatever, in the business arena, you've got to be ready for it. So we actually took the Tai Chi teachings on that. We talked about the history from, we also covered that from the pre-Christ days of Tai Chi and Western medicine. Elizabeth's not here anymore, but very powerful stuff. I mean, through calmness of movement and stillness in the heart mind, students will find materials in naturalness. It all goes on about just how to be quiet. In the bottom there, it says about the breathing is actually regulated by the correct posture. So if your posture isn't correct, your breathing is going to be out. So I did some work with a colleague of mine, Henri Ulofsson. He's a Tai Chi teacher. He does Tai Chi, but he specializes in it's the Wu style of Tai Chi. Okay, Wu style is what they taught the warriors. The two things they had to do is they had to be calm inside when they're facing the enemy. So it's like the two things that are probably almost like contradictory. If you're facing an enemy, normally you upregulate and you're stressed. But the Wu style specifically teaches you to stay focused and calm inside while you're facing a stressor. So we did 10 sessions of Tai Chi training over 4 weeks in soccer players, professional soccer players. And we used a 2-minute boxing round as a stressor. Okay, so you have to place them under stress. All we did was Tai Chi training. We did no soccer, no boxing training with them, just Tai Chi training. I've got some videos now. This is now the pre-training. Can you start there? Yeah, so basically there's 4D cameras all around the room. You can see on his body there's all these little things that get picked up by the camera, like little markers. And also so that's measuring their posture, their angles of the body movement. We measured the heart rate to measure the heart rate variability on the inside. So we measured both how good their posture was and how relaxed they felt inside. So what I want you to note there is what we taught them is to have parallel feet. Because if you go on your back foot, that's a defensive mindset. Okay, you might feel calmer if you remove from the stressor, but you're not as ready for action. Okay, so you try to get the feet parallel and face their stressor head on, so that the feet, the hips, the shoulders and the eyes have to face their stressor head on. And then they move around their spine. That was sort of the main idea. I can see it's very tentative. It's on the back foot most of the time. He's not really stepping backwards to the sideways. We taught him to block. You just got to step sideways and put your hand up and you block it. Okay, and the next one out of the post. Okay, this is now after this. It's just 1 month of training, 4 weeks of training with 10 sessions of practice. So you can see now he's much more focused, much more relaxed. Just look at his feet angles, and he steps sideways rather than back. Now, obviously, you're going to be more confident the second time, but we did this with we can only test 8 guys because it's quite intensive training sessions. And we've got a range of results. I'll show you the results now when I'm finished after that. But you can see his feet are more parallel. He's spending more time on his front foot. He's not so defensive. So he's meeting the stress head on. And he's even like smiling, and it's like he's enjoying it because he knows he can do it. Now, these are soccer players, so they're not used to boxing at all, not used to using their hands, they're always used to using their feet. Okay, this is just the last 3 slides just to show you what you got for the heart rate versus the interfoot angles. So the bottom is the interfoot angle. So the wider the angle is, the more on the back foot they were, the more splayed the feet were. And the higher the heart rate variability is, the more relaxed the feet inside. So you can clearly see, the guys that had more on the back foot, more wider stance, they felt safer inside. The heart rate variability was higher, more parasympathetic activity. But lo and behold, after we trained them, it was completely all around. The guys that had narrow foot angles, the more on the front foot, they felt the best. And even the best thing of all was, if you just look at the difference, those guys at the bottom, the increase, the more parallel their feet were, the greater the heart rate variability. I mean, how does that make sense? So just by changing their posture, from going the back foot to the front foot and meeting their chest or head on, they felt more relaxed. And so that makes sense when you look at someone like, I don't know if you know Nadia Comaneci, the first perfect 10. What she said is like, she taught herself over and over again to that, on that beam, when she does a somersault, just to be so quiet and so focused, so aware of what the body's doing, that in mid-air she can feel when her posture is out. She can see that my hips are in mid-air, she can correct it. But you can only do that if your thinking brain is completely quiet. And it's just the body awareness that comes up, and you're just completely relaxed. And that's basically, it's just so simple, those 2 things. If you're deeply relaxed, teach yourself to be deeply relaxed at all times. You can listen to your body, and you mustn't think. You can do those 2 things, anything, nothing is impossible. Okay, thanks very much.